Hello, I'm Kerry and I'm a printmaker, mainly specialising in lino prints. So I mainly do botanical work, so like that, and things like that. So for folksy, I said I'd do a little tutorial showing you how to do a lino print. I really hope you enjoy it. So before we get started, a few things that you will need. So first of all is your lino. In this tutorial I'm going to be using traditional lino, which is made out of linseed oil and cork and compressed down onto essium backing. This is my preferred material to work with. I find it very nice, easy to cut into. It gives you some nice fine line work with thicker line work, and it's just generally a nice product to work with. You can buy alternatives, so like soft cut, easy cut, the Japanese vinyl. A lot of people find they're easier to use, but I find, for me, I find them slightly annoying because you have to, when you cut, you have to keep brushing away or pulling away what you've cut, whereas this would just fall off as you're cutting. And you can get a greater range of marks on this. And my tip is for this, if you're finding it difficult to cut, keep it warm, because warming up the linseed oil in the lino will make it a lot easier to cut. So that's your lino. You also need a anti-slip mat underneath, because without it, when you're cutting, you're going to be slipping. With it, it's far more stable. You also need some tools, and there's mainly 3 types of tools. So you can buy these types where you get a handle and the blades are separate. So all you need to do is pop the blade in there, cut away, and then keep removing it to change blades. These are fairly cheap to buy, but they do tend to be made out of cheaper metals, so you might find you need to keep sharpening them a lot, or they might break easily. And also it'd be quite annoying to keep changing the blades over if you're doing a lot of lino. Then you can also get the pencil shaped tools, and they normally come in packs, so I mainly use those ones. They say they're for wood carving, but you can use them on lino. And you get a nice range of tool shapes. So you got a V, a couple of U's and a knife. And as they, in the name, they're shaped like a pencil. And then the more expensive tools are usually shaped like mushrooms, and they're made out of better quality metal, and you get a greater variety of sizes in the tool shapes. But all the tools, you basically get a V tool, which you use for all your line work. You usually get a U tool, don't you see that? Which you mainly use for cutting out large areas. Knife tools. A lot of people don't like using them, but you use them mainly for line work again. They do take a little bit of practice to get used to these. And then you can also get chisels, which you can use for flattening off areas, making little dash marks. For my own work, I mainly use these. So, for this tutorial, I'm going to be using the pencil shape tool. Oh, I just dropped the tool there. So, to prepare your lino, as you can see, it's all grey, and when you cut into it, it can be really difficult to see where you're cutting. So I like to stain it with some acrylic. So all I'm going to do is pop a little bit on the lino, a little bit of water, move it around, then taking some kitchen roll, I'm just going to spread it around. And the idea is you're staining it and there shouldn't be any lumpy bits on it. So I'm just going to let that dry. Now you want to think about putting your design onto the lino. Quite often I would just draw directly onto the lino with an HB pencil. But just bear in mind that when you print it's going to be back to front. So you may want to let tracing paper become your best friend, because when you can draw on it, you can decide where you want it on your lino, and if you're doing any text on your work, you need to flip it over, and it's a lot easier to do that on tracing paper. So I'm going to do this design on my lino. So I've drawn it on this side, and I'm just going to flip it over. I'm going to get some masking tape and just tape it into place so it doesn't move. And then using a biro, that's how I'm going to put another bit of masking tape on there. Keep it flat. There you go. So I'm going to take a biro and just go over the lines again. I'm not pushing too hard, and then you should, so you can see the line work just coming through. So I'm just going to go over my entire drawing with a biro. So I've traced my design on the lino, so I'm just going to remove the tracing paper. Can you see that properly? So I'm just going to go over my line work with a Sharpie pen, just to make it easier to see, and also you can adjust your design a little bit as well. So I'm just going to go over the lines with the marker. So I've gone around my drawing with a pen. You can see I've added a bit of detail to the pot. So now it's time to start cutting. My lino was feeling a little bit cold, so to warm it up, which will make it easier to cut, I just shoved it down my top. If you don't want to do that, just use an hairdryer and that will work perfectly fine. So for this design, I'm going to be cutting all of the background away and all of the line work out, and then I'm going to be cutting all these dots out. So I'm going to be using the V tool to do all of my line work. So with the pencil shape one, you want to hold them a bit like that and at a shallow angle, or Now, some people like to hold them like this. You just want to find your own comfortable way of holding the tools. The main thing to remember is that your supporting hand is behind the blade, because you don't want to be aiming towards you, because that would be quite nasty. And you want to have that type, I don't know if you can see that well, that type of angle while you're cutting. And remember, always cut away from you, and if you need to do a curve, turn your lino and not yourself. I'm just going to start cutting the pot. There. And I'm going to turn my lino around. So I tend to do all of my line work first before cutting out large areas. Just going to make that a little bit wider there. So if you find you do some area too fine, just go back over them again. So we continue doing that all the way around my leaf and cut out my line work. And to do my circles, I'm going to use the smaller one of the U tool. And all I'm going to do is hold it up fairly upright, dig it in and twist my lino around. And that will create a little circle. And also with the U tool, when I finish doing all my line work, I'm going to use this to cut away the background. Like so. So I'm just going to continue cutting out my lines. You might find it useful to have a toothbrush on hand, because as you start cutting, it just clears away any of the dust, so you can see what you're doing. So I finished cutting out my plate. You may find the background is still quite lumpy, so you will need to flatten that off a bit so the ink don't catch it and you don't end up printing it. I usually just go over the ridges with the U tool, just gently going over the ridges until it looks flatter. If you're finding you're making it worse, and if you got a chisel tool in your box, you can use this to help flatten off your background. So you want to make sure the beveled edge is facing the lino. And you just go over the top. And you can see it gives you a flatter surface. So once you finish cutting your lino, get a toothbrush and give it a good brush. You want to get rid of all the dust and loose lino off. And now I'm ready to print. So I'm almost ready to start printing. So what you will need is some kind of plastic sheet or perspex or a bit of glass, and you want that to roll out your ink onto. Then you will need some rollers, and as with the tools, rollers can come in a various range of price, size and different firmness. These are the slightly cheaper ones. They're made out of plastic and they're quite firm. And then going up to rubber based ones, they tend to be got a bit more of a give to them. And then slightly higher up on the price scale are some rubber ones, and they've got much more of a give to them. You can also get Durafame ones, which are again soft. I prefer using a softer roller as opposed to a firmer roller, because I find it will ink out or roll out the ink much nicer, and it's easier to ink up your plate with. So for this demo, I'm just going to use this roller there and move those out of the way. Ink wise, I'm going to be using Calico Safe Wash ink. It's oil based, but you can wash it with warm soapy water. And again, there's so many different types of ink that you can get. You can get oil based, water based. It's totally up to you what you prefer. What I would say with water based inks, they can dry out really quickly, which can be a bonus for wanting your work to dry quickly. But when you're rolling out the ink, applying it to your lino, it can have a tendency to dry out as you're working. So personally, I will always go for oil-based ink. Again, before starting to print, if you want your lino to be registered in the paper in the same place, it's worthwhile making some kind of registration. And I'm just using what they call a registration corner, which I've made myself, which is just 2 sheets of old melt board that I've glued on top of each other, and there's a little lip there. So the lino goes in there and my paper will go in there. So to roll out your ink, I'm just going to put a small blob out. You don't need, a little will go a long way. And then it's really tempting just to stick your roller in there and just start rolling. Try not to do that, because all you would do is end up with a thick sticky layer. So just want to pick up a little bit, move it up, roll, lift it back, carry on rolling. Because the idea is you want to create lots of thin layers rather than one thick layer. Pick a bit more up. And the best way to tell whether it's thick enough is that it should have a soft whisper sound to it rather than a sticky sound. So a bit like that. And then you do the same onto your plate. So roll, lift. You can turn your block around. Keep loading up the roller. And you're just aiming for a nice thin layer onto your lino. And then when you hold it up, you shouldn't be able to see any of the lino show through the ink. And it should look nice and even and not too thick. So now we're ready to print. So I'm going to put my inked up lino in there. Move just the camera a bit. Paper wise, again there's so many different types of paper you can get. You can get like Japanese paper, Pacific printmaking paper, and they also vary in prices. A lot of shops will sell sample packs, so it's worthwhile buying those just to see what type of paper you prefer to print on. But when you're starting out, you could just use ordinary inkjet paper. The main thing to remember is that you want it to be smooth, because anything with a texture will create a mottle effect on your work. So I'm just going to use a bit of inkjet paper first of all. I'm just going to carefully place it into the corner and let it drop. And then I'm going to use a speedball burnisher. You just hold it like that, and then you just do circular motions, and this is what you call burnishing. And if you want to check to see how well the ink is picking up, place your hand on top and just gently lift up the side, and you can see where you need to put more pressure on. And you keep going until it's the right depth of print that you want. So that's using a Baron. Or my favourite thing to use is a spoon. So just a regular spoon from your cutlery drawer. Just need to make sure there's no sharp bits on it. And I'm again just doing circular. And I find I can get more pressure on a spoon than I can with the Baron. And then when you're done, just gently peel the paper back. So I could have spent a bit more time to get more even pressure on there in the pot. So I'm going to ink up the plate again and print a few more. So here are the finished prints. So these two have been printed on inkjet paper, and these two on a Japanese paper. You can see there's a slight difference in the colour of paper, and it's a much smoother paper and easier to print onto. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed my tutorial, and give it a go yourself and let me know how you get on. Bye.